one of water's properties is unique, and they do not easily fit into the generally accepted laws of physics. Science has not yet been able to answer the question of why water is the only substance on the planet that can exist in three states: liquid, solid, and gaseous. Why does water have the highest surface tension of all liquids? Why is it the most powerful solvent on Earth? And how, in defiance of the Earth's gravity, is water able to rise through the trunks of gigantic trees against tens of atmospheres of pressure? A fantastic hypothesis was put forward. A hypothesis that could explain water's unpredictable behavior. Water has memory. Experiments done in many countries around the world have shown that water receives and makes an imprint of any outside influence, remembering everything that occurs in the space that surrounds it. Any substance coming into contact with water leaves a trace in the water. Had our ancestors guessed this when they used silver vessels to turn ordinary water into healing water?
It is today the best antibiotic that is made, as good in Afghanistan and Iraq. The American army uses this water, 1 atom per 100 million, to kill all the germs in a wound. So the President of the United States uses this water to keep infectious bugs from his hand. So I said, how can this water be?
As it records information, water acquires new properties, yet its chemical composition remains unchanged.
So their theory was the chemical composition of the water is important. Now the sensational news is that that is nonsense. The structure of water is much more important than the chemical composition.
The structure of water means how its molecules are organized. We can see how water molecules join together into groups. These are called clusters. Scientists came up with the idea that these clusters work as memory cells of a certain sort, in which water records the whole history of its relationship with the world, as if on magnetic tape.
People don't think when you turn on the light, the water is changing.
If you consider a cluster as a group of specific molecules, then it can survive only a short amount of time. But if you consider it as a structure whereby molecules can leave and other molecules come in, the cluster can last effectively for a very long time.
The stability of the cluster structures confirm the hypothesis that water is capable of recording and storing information.
It may be the single most malleable computer, which can, it's like a computer memory. It's the memory of information. We must know how it is arranged. It is like the alphabet. If I give you the alphabet, you don't know a word, you don't know a letter, you don't know a sentence. So the molecular structure is the alphabet of water. And you must make a sentence out of water, and you can change a sentence.
I hope to show people through my research that water has a memory of its own. Dr. Emoto's laboratory does research on water samples, which are subjected to various forms of outside influence. The impressions made upon the water are recorded by swiftly freezing it in a cryogenic chamber. This is what water heated in a microwave oven looks like. This is the effect of a mobile telephone. Somebody said thank you to this water. Excuse me. You disgust me. With modern technology, it is possible to structurize water artificially. When seeds were grown under laboratory conditions using this kind of water, the soy sprouts had 6 times greater photon radiation than when ordinary water was used. Using structurized water makes vegetables ripen faster and increases the amount of useful microelements and vegetable proteins several-fold.
If we look at the shoots, the treated ones were long, even, and strong, while the untreated ones were short, thin, and weak. If we look at the plants today, those from the selected seeds have all ripened, but the ones from non-selected seeds have not. We have to say that using structurized water really does affect the growth of vegetables and fruits.
For the purposes of irrigation, 20% less of this type of water is needed than when using ordinary water. No fertilizer was added to the soil or the water. The chemical composition remained the same, H2O. The only thing that had changed was its structure. At the present time, scientists can answer the question of how this happens, but science does not yet have an answer to the question of why. Let's imagine that here we have a human being, and here we have water. This water contains many different types of information. If we introduce this water into the human body, then that human body will assimilate this information, which may change the person's characteristics. In 1995, Dr. Masaru Emoto was the first one to record musical impressions on water. In Dr. Emoto's laboratory, they presented water with different types of music, after which they froze the water and then under the microscope could clearly see the crystals that the water had formed. Here is what the music of Bach looks like. Mozart. Beethoven. Heavy rock. Dr. Emoto conducted another groundbreaking experiment. He placed rice into 3 glass beakers and covered it with water. And then every day for a month he said thank you to one beaker. You're an idiot to the second. And the third one he completely ignored. After 1 month, the rice that had been thanked began to ferment, giving off a strong, pleasant aroma. The rice in the second beaker turned black. And the rice that was ignored began to rot. Dr. Emoto feels that this experiment provides an important lesson, especially with regard to how we treat children. We should take care of them, give them attention, and converse with them. Indifference does the greatest harm. It may not always be easy to do, and almost always it takes practice.
Okay, so this is the distilled water, just come out of the freezer. Let's see what we got. Looks lovely. No, nothing in there, just distilled water. So boiled and then condensed, cooled down and condensed into pure water with 0 particles per million. And this is what it looks like when it's frozen. Beautiful. Now I've taken out the glass, and this is what it looks like upside down. Distilled water with 0 particles per million, frozen. Okay, so here's my vortexing system. You can see I have 4 magnets, and they all have the north pole pointing inwards and the south pointing outwards. So they're all repelling each other towards the center. They're all being repelled, so the water gets repelled and gets pushed around, and then that's what energizes the water. Okay, and this is just a bottle vortexer, plastic vortexer, which has got a double screw head. So you put another bottle on top, and once you twist the bottle a couple of times, the vortex starts, and the opposing magnets structures the water. So you put one magnet on, and then next, and then the next, and then the next. So here we have distilled water which has been vortexed and frozen with magnets, opposing magnets, and you can see the difference. So there we have it. That's proof that magnets do structure the water, and when it's frozen it looks different to standard distilled water. And here we have the distilled vortexed out of the glass, upside down. This is what it looks like. You can definitely see the difference between the standard distilled water and the magnetized or vortexed distilled water. Use a concentrated sea salt solution. This is just distilled water with sea salt, but I've put so much sea salt in there to make it concentrated, so you can see the sea salt at the bottom of the mug is not dissolving anymore, because the water is already so much concentrated with sea salt that the rest of it will not dissolve. So you need a teaspoon full of this solution for every 4 liters. I usually make 2 liters at one time, and I put half a teaspoon of this concentrated sea salt solution into my water. Okay, so now we have distilled water with a tiny bit of sea salt in there, and this is what it looks like when it's frozen. Again, it's different. Different to standard distilled water. So this is not vortexed, this is just standard distilled water with a tiny bit of sea salt added to energize it, to structure it with seawater. Right, let's get it out of the glass, see what it looks like. Okay, so here we have it. The distilled water with a touch of sea salt. Taking out the glass and it's upside down. That's beautiful. Right, so next we'll have a look at the distilled water with a pinch of sea salt and magnetized vortexed. Okay, so finally we have the distilled water with a pinch of sea salt and vortex through a repellent magnetic field to structure it using magnets. You can see the difference again from the non-vortexed salted water compared to this one, which is vortexed. So this is what I've been drinking, and I think this is the key, because our bodies conduct electricity, and that's due to the salt in our water, because standard water or distilled water does not conduct electricity. It's the actual salt that conducts the electricity in our bodies, and I think salt energizes our bodies, and that's why when we sweat the salt comes out. We have to replace the salt to energize us again. So this is what I've been drinking, and I would recommend this. I will come back and let you know the differences that it has for your health benefits, etc. Right, let's get it out of the glass, see what it looks like. Right, here we have it. So now look at the structure. Now that it's out of the glass, this is the distilled water with a pinch of sea salt that has been vortexed with opposing magnetic side to give it its structure. So I'll do a side-by-side comparison, and then we can see how the structure is different from non-distilled water to others. It's been vortexed through repellent magnetic field, how it structures it, also the salt, how the salt has affected and energized the water.
Let us see how this type of water affects human blood. The doctor is drawing blood from a patient's finger. Using a special microscope, we shall be able to see the condition of her body from this drop.
These are red blood cells, and they've lost their electrical charge, so they're all stuck together in a formation called a rouleau. Here's a huge symplast. Symplasts are associated with heart disease and arthritis and lung disease and many other conditions that could be coming in the future.
The doctor asks the patient to drink a small amount of structured water. After 12 minutes, the doctor again draws blood from the patient and studies it.
So you can see that the cells then become buoyant, they become slippery, and they have their electrical charge, so they repel each other. That allows them to carry oxygen, and it means that we're changing the pH of the blood back to an aerobic environment rather than an anaerobic environment. I think that's utterly amazing that just drinking water could do that.
Now, in this next series of pictures, Mr. Emoto printed out words, taped them to bottles of distilled water, and left them out overnight. This first photograph is a picture of the pure distilled water, just the essence of itself. These subsequent photographs, as you can see, are each different. This is the Chi of love. And we move along here to thank you. And you can see where he taped that to this bottle here. But if you read Japanese, you already knew that. Now, Mr. Emoto speaks of the thought or intent being the driving force in all of this. The science of how that actually affects the molecules is unknown, except to the water molecules, of course. And it's really fascinating when you keep in mind that 90% of our bodies are water.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? If thoughts can do that to water, imagine what our thoughts can do to us.